Everybody, I am here to do a video for you on how to make the Soxbox Trio bags. I'm going to show you how to make the Soxbox itself because all the bags are made pretty much exactly the same. The only difference is the size. And there's one or two features in each of the boxes that's a little bit different, but I will show those as we go. So I've already put the outside panels together because I figured you guys could probably figure that out. But let me go ahead and explain what I've done. So this is your center panel focus piece. You're going to want to make sure that if it is directional, that your direction is going vertically this way. This one it has birds that I wanted to be right side up, so I went ahead and did that. And make sure that your back panel does the same thing. Your side panels, again, if they're directional, you want them to go this direction. And so when you sew this together, you will sew each of the side panels to the side of the center, and then sew your bottom panel on. Sorry, there's little pieces of thread all over this. So that will be your outside panel piece. And then your interior pieces are what I've done, because I only had a fat quarter bundle. I only had some sample fabric when I made this, or when I started to make this. I only had sample fabric in, so I only had fat quarters, and so I had to use two pieces for my interior. So my interior is two different fabrics. This is pearl, by the way. If you didn't recognize it, it is called pearl, as in knit and pearl. And it was designed by Sarah Watts for Ruby Star Society, and we have it in our shop. It just got in, so it's still showing as pre-order in the shop, but it just came 2 days ago, so it's ready to go. So the first thing we're going to do, if this was the biggie bag, let me just go ahead and explain that. If this was the biggie bag and not the Soxbox, you would be putting a pocket on the inside and not a divider. We're going to be making the divider for this because this is the Soxbox pattern. This is a finished Soxbox, just so you can see what it looks like when it's all finished. And the reason I call it the Soxbox is it is a knitting box bag that when you open it, it has a removable divider in the center. Can you see that? And you can put one ball of yarn on one side, one ball on the other side of the divider. Your yarn can come up through your grommets, and then you can knit your 2 at a time socks without your yarn getting tangled with the two with each other. So that's the reason that I designed this bag, because I wanted to have a bag that I could carry my sock projects in, that also served as a way of keeping my my knitting from getting tangled. So that's what that is for. So let me go back to say that if you were making the biggie bag, you would be putting a pocket here. In the instructions, it says you measure from the bottom 4 inches up. You measure the center, which all I do to do that is just fold this in half and make a little crease. And then you found the center. And then measure 4 inches up, center your pocket. And then what I just do is I pin the pocket down. I put the pocket flap on over the top of it so that the pocket flap is over the top of the pocket. And then I sew all the way around from the top of the pocket flap all the way around the bottom of the pocket and all the way back up to the pocket flap. That way it holds down the sides of the pocket flap, so you'll be able to reach in underneath and put things inside that pocket, but they won't fall out. And it secures all of your corners for your pocket. I didn't think that was a really difficult step, so I didn't show that on video. The main reason I'm making this video is there are some places where the illustrations were really difficult for me to make. I am not an illustrator, and I did design this pattern, so all of these illustrations I did design myself. And I'm not an illustrator, and I can't draw. So, but the illustrations I think came out really well considering that. But there is one spot in the pattern that I felt was a little bit difficult to understand. And even with an illustration and with a photo, I think it's difficult to understand if you don't see it in video. So I decided to go ahead and make a video for you guys so that you could see me making it. And I think once you see it, you're going to see how simple it is to make. It's very simple. So this is our centerpieces, and this is our divider. So what I'm going to do is sew this divider. What you want to do is take your two pieces and put them right sides together. You're going to put your soft and stable on one or the other side, doesn't matter which one. And then you're going to go ahead and go sew your 1/4 inch seam on this. I did 1/4 inch seams. Normally when I make bags, I do 1/2 inch seams. I did 1/4 inch seams because I found with the soft and stable, it made the seams less bulky. And so, and I really wanted to use soft and stable and not use SF101. I have given you the measurements for using SF101 if you prefer to do that. I have many friends who prefer to use SF101 along with their soft and stable so that their outside fabric stays wrinkle free. But personally, I like the feel of the bag without the SF101. I like the softness of the fabric. So I just don't like to use the SF101. At this point, if you are using SF101, you're going to want to go ahead and fuse it to your external fabric. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is make this divider. Actually, first thing we're going to do is cut the corners. So I've already cut the corners on my centerpiece, but I wanted to show you that on the external pieces. So here's the external pieces. And all I do is take my ruler, and you can either just use your ruler straight or you can mark it with a pencil and then cut it. So I am going to go ahead and use a pencil and mark it. And then I'm going to cut it with my scissors. So each corner you're going to want to mark a 3-inch square. And then go ahead and cut it with your scissors. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so it is all cut out, and it looks just like the lining fabric. So now we're going to go ahead and do the divider. I figured I better make this in the order that I have it in the pattern. Otherwise, you guys are going to get confused. So yeah. Anyway, I'm going to switch over to my sewing machine. Okay, here we are at the machine. Had to get the lights right. So all I'm going to do is go ahead and sew around the outside, all the way around the outside. Just leave a space at the bottom for turning, and then we can go ahead and turn it and get the Velcro sewn on. If you don't feel comfortable just holding the soft and stable as you sew, you can definitely clip it with some Wonder Clips. And also, because I have had you cut the soft and stable a little bit smaller, here, let me move this back so you can see better. There we go. Because the soft and stable is a little bit smaller, you're actually not going to even need to sew over it. It's just going to go inside as if it was stuffing. So I just started there where I'm going to turn, and I'm just sewing all the way around. Really simple. Simple and quick. So what I do at this point is go ahead and put the soft and stable next to the piece, and my scissors are not over here. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to clip the corners. So I'm clipping the corners just so I can get those a little bit more square, but because this is going to be inside your bag, it's really not going to be a big deal if it's not perfect square, or your points aren't super pointy. So I'm going to put my soft and stable here, and then I'm going to turn this out. I didn't leave a very big space, but we'll see how we do here. It helps to turn it out with your soft and stable next to it. That way you don't have to stuff it inside that little hole afterwards. So I'm just getting it all turned out, getting all of those corners pushed out. I just use the end of my fingernail, or you can use a purple thing or some kind of turner. I also use a chopstick to make them nice and pointy. And then I'm going to get my soft and stable nice and flat, make sure it's all over into the edges. I normally would use a darker thread with this fabric because it's got a black background, but I used white so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so it's all turned out. Now I'm just going to turn under this seam allowance where the opening is, and make sure that I turn one of the seam allowances over the edge of the soft and stable so that it covers the edge of it. Just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and press these. And it kind of popped out a little bit, so I'm going to fix it again and press it again. Okay, so now it is all turned out nice. And I am going to go and top stitch very close to the edge, right about 1/8 of an inch all the way around. And what that's going to do is then close that bottom edge that I have left open there. I should do this with a dark thread. Give me one moment. I'm going to go ahead and change my thread out of my machine. Okay, I've switched out to a dark gray thread, and that way it won't contrast with the fabric. Because even though I am sewing this for you, I'm also sewing it for me, and I do want it to look good when I'm done. So I'm just going to go ahead and top stitch this at about 1/8 of an inch all the way around to close in that seam, and just to make it make the soft and stable stay in the right spot. that's done. So I'll just trim off my threads. Get rid of my garbage. Okay, where did I put my velcro? Here it is. So the loop part, sorry, I was just trying to decide if I wanted to put the loop on the divider or on the bag, but I think I want to put it on the divider, because if the divider is out, I don't want the loop to stick to whatever's inside the bag. So that's the best way to do that. So what we're going to do is take the two pieces of hook. So the hook is the part that has the open loops on it. So if you feel it, it's really hard and kind of makes a funny noise when you run your fingernail over it. And the loop, I'm sorry, did I say the hook? Yeah, that's the hook. And the loop part is the one that feels kind of like velour. It's softer. So make sure that you put the hook part on your divider, because you don't want it to stick to your yarn if your yarn is in there without the divider. So we're putting the hook on the divider, and while we're at the machine, take your lining, find the center, which I've already done, but you can just fold your lining in half, make a crease, measure up 4 inches from the bottom, and put your loop on your lining. You're going to do it on both pieces of lining. So I'm just going to go ahead and pin it there. It's kind of heavy duty Velcro, so it takes a second to get it through there. I'm going to do the same thing with the other side of my lining. Measure up 4 inches, put it right there on that crease that you just made. There we go. Oops. Didn't get it through the fabric. There we go. So now we're going to go back to the machine and go ahead and sew these pieces of Velcro onto the lining and onto the divider. And I'm just centering the hook tape onto the edges of the divider and just starting and going, just sewing close to the edge. We're going to go all the way around. And forget to backstitch when you get to the end. Okay, there's one. And yes, I'm putting them both on the same side as the divider. It works out just fine. The divider is going to fold a little bit when you put it into the bag. And I'm also not going really close to the edge because I don't want these edges of this hook to be coming out when I have my yarn in there, because it will stick to the yarn. I know I've mentioned that a couple times, but just thought I'd re-mention it. Don't want to get snags in my pretty yarn. I personally love to use really nice yarn because I am a very slow knitter, and if I'm going to take 3 months to make something, I want it to be nice. So I use really nice yarn. So I don't want it to get ruined by the Velcro. Okay, so you just put your little Velcro hook pieces on there like that. And we're going to do the same thing with these lining pieces with the loop on them. And I'm just making sure that I keep that centered over the crease that I made when I folded this. I love this fabric. It's great for making quilt labels or anything. It says made by and for and all different things. Lots of love, handmade, all kinds of fun little motifs on this one. They almost look like little tattoos or something. Okay. Our Velcro is on. Now the Velcro is kind of a plastic material, so you don't want to press it without something in between. So it's okay to press it like from the outside of the bag, but once you have sewn it onto your divider, you don't want to press it again because it will melt. Okay, so we're going to put these aside for a second. We're going to work on our zipper. So this is a 14-inch zipper. You're only going to need 12 inches. I am going to move the zipper pull to the center. And this is a 12-inch ruler, and I am just going to mark it, the zipper that is. I'm going to use a water-soluble marker just in case. So I'm going to mark this at 12 inches. And I'm going to go and I'm going to sew across the teeth of the zipper on both sides where it's 12 inches. And then I'm going to cut off just past that to make the zipper the right length. You want to make sure that your zipper pull is in the center and that you sew the ends closed before you move that zipper pull because you don't want it to fall off the ends. Also, the reason we're not just cutting one end or the other end off is because we're going to be sewing across here a few times. You don't want your needle to hit the zipper end, either of those metal ends, because it will break your needle. And I did that last time because I was being quick and decided not to do it the way I knew I should. So, okay, so we're just going to move back over to the sewing machine. And I'm just going to sew across and back once or twice just to make sure that I hold those zipper teeth together. You don't want your zipper to come apart later. So you'll need 12 inches for the biggie bag or the bitty bag. I mean, the biggie bag or this Soxbox. You only need 5 inches for the bitty bag. When I made these the first time, I made all 3 of the bags at the same time. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut this off right about 3/8 of an inch, maybe 1/4 of an inch, somewhere around there. And those are just throwaway now. Now you can use your little pieces that you've cut off of your corners if you want to make your bag, your zipper ends. But I went ahead and made my zipper ends out of the focus fabric. So all you do is take the lengthwise, fold it in half, and then fold the ends into the center. So you're just making a casing for the ends of your zipper. Same thing with this one. So this is the length. You fold that in half and press, and then you fold in half and press again. And then I do it again, usually this way. So we're going to take these, put them on the ends of the zipper, and then we're just going to top stitch really close to the edge so that the ends of our zipper are covered. It looks much nicer on your bag when you do it that way. And I'm just going to try to make sure that I keep these nice and even on the top and the bottom. Doesn't make a lot of difference because that bottom is not going to really show, but I just like to keep it neat. And I'm just going to top stitch really close to the edge. And you don't have to worry about back stitching because you're going to sew over that seam again later on. This is off a little bit. I want to make sure that it catches both sides, so I'm just being careful. And it's really easy to sew over those nylon zipper teeth, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so our zipper's all done. Okay, so we're going to take, this is the top side of our lining. We're going to put our zipper on. And I always like to do a what I call a reality check and say, okay, if this is the lining, my zipper is supposed to be facing towards the outside. If I turn it this way, it's going to be facing toward the inside. So I know that the zipper needs to go this way. So it's going to go face up. You want to make sure your zipper pull is to the left, pulling from the left. And then we're going to take the outside fabric and we're going to put that on. So I want to center this zipper so that the tabs and the zipper are centered really nicely there. Your ends of your zipper tab are going to stick out over the top. That's fine. The reason I did that is so that you could sew over them on the ends and then trim them off later, because you want it to be nice and neat. It'll look much neater if you trim them off rather than trying to get them perfectly even. So I'm just matching up all of the edges. And I'm going to get some Wonder Clips and I'm going to clip this together. So I've got my outside fabric right side down, my lining fabric right side up, and my zipper right side up. And you're putting the fabric at the top of the zipper, not at the bottom part. Just grabbing some Wonder Clips. And I'm just making sure everything gets lined up really nicely. And we'll go over and we will use our zipper foot to sew the zipper on. I'm going to go ahead and just pin the edges here just so they don't come apart. Just find that it keeps everything nice and neat. So if you want to baste your soft and stable to your exterior pieces, you would want to do that before you put it on the zipper. I don't do that, but it is a lot easier to keep all of the pieces together if you do that. I kind of fly by the seat of my pants when it comes to this, so I don't do that. But if you want to baste, what I would do is baste it at about 3/8 of an inch. Then you can always pull the basting stitches out later. So baste the top edges and baste your side pieces and baste your bottom edge to your exterior piece if you want to baste your pieces. I'm not going to do that, but it does make it easier to keep your pieces together if you do that. So consider that if that's something that you're worried about. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to sewing machine. Through the magic of television, I have switched to my zipper foot. I'm going to use about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. or whatever feels comfortable to you sewing on the zipper. I personally am kind of, again, flying by the seat of my pants. I usually just use the edge of my zipper foot to tell where I want to be. I want to be right in the middle of that foot. And I do suggest you go really slow when you're doing a zipper. Make sure that all your pieces are staying together properly. You can also, I like to keep my finger on top of where the zipper pull is, because when I get close to that, I want to stop, move the zipper pull out of the way so that I don't go next to it. If you go next to it, you'll get a divot in your sewing and it will show from the outside, so you don't want to do that. Okay, so I'm getting close now. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and move my zipper foot out of the way. What I do is make sure that my needle is down. I lift my presser foot, and then I reach in between all of the pieces of fabric, and I pull the zipper pull out of the way. I usually pull it behind the machine foot because that makes it easier. If you do it the other direction, you'll end up having to move it again. So. And if you go nice and slow and keep an eye on where you're sewing, you should have a nice straight seam for your zipper, which is kind of important because your zipper tape is definitely going to show. I used a bright colored zipper on this. I used an orange zipper, so it's definitely going to show. And I'm just going to back stitch a couple of stitches. Okay, I'm going to take all of my pins out that I kept my fabric together with and turn this. So there's our zipper. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to finger press this. Oh, whoops, there goes my ruler. I am going to finger press this really hard on both sides so that I know that it's pulled away from the zipper teeth as much as it possibly can be. And if I feel like that lining is going to pull away, I might pin it down. My thread got unthreaded. But I think it'll be fine. And I am going to top stitch. I'm going to top stitch this 1/4 of an inch away from the edge so that I'm trying to find a place to put these things so they don't fall off my table. So that the lining never gets stuck in maybe 1/8 of an inch away. So that the lining does not get stuck in my zipper when I open and close my zipper when I'm using my bag later on. So what I'm doing is just holding the lining away underneath first, keeping it nice and flat on top. And this you're going to have to be, if you want to, you can change out your zipper foot, or you can do the top stitching after you've done the other side. But I am just going to eyeball it. Try to be careful to make sure that I'm keeping it nice and straight. This is one of those times when, as a teacher, I should probably be doing this the way I'm telling you instead of the way that I do it normally. But do as I say, not as I do, I guess. Okay, so I just top stitched that. And what that does is it keeps your lining fabric from pulling into your zipper when you go to use your bag later on. Okay, now we're going to do the other side of the zipper. Okay, I'm going to keep that zipper halfway open. Make sure that my lining is right side up. We're going to do the same thing again. We're just going to put all these pieces together. The other piece of soft and stable. And we're going to clip them. With Wonder Clips. Oh, looks like I need to move my camera a little bit. I always have my back to the screen when I'm sewing. There we go. Hope you could see the last time I was over here. Trying to make sure all my pieces are straight. Especially the zipper. The fabric won't show as much as that zipper will, I'll tell you. Okay, I'm looking for where there. Right here is where my zipper pull is. Gotta find it. There we go. see how that came out. Yeah, nice and straight, so that's good. So now I'll just top stitch the other side. Since I won't need my zipper foot anymore, I'm going to go ahead and take it off. And again, I'm going to finger press the top and the lining to make sure that it stays away from the zipper while I sew it. And again, we're going to end up sewing over that seam, so you don't need to worry about backstitching it. It's a lot easier to keep this straight when you have the other foot on. Oh, could you even see any of that? Oh my goodness. Well, I might have to refilm that. Either that, or I might have to just cut it out. So here we are, all sewn with our zipper done. Okay, so make sure that your zipper is at least halfway open. You don't want it right at the end on either side. Definitely keep it in the middle, because you're going to need to turn your bag out through that hole. So make sure that it's open. Otherwise, it's going to be really hard to open. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take our two lining pieces and we're going to put them together. We're going to match up the bottom edge. I'm going to go ahead and pin these. What I used to do, and what I still sometimes do, is if I am going to leave an opening, I'll put two pins in, one going one direction, one going the other direction, so that I remember to leave that opening for turning. A tiny applique pin. Okay, so this is the bottom seam for the lining. These are the side seams. We are not going to sew where the squares are cut out right now. We're only sewing the straight seams. So that's all of the lining. Now we're going to do the same thing with the exterior. So match up all of your straights, your soft and stable, and your straight seams on your exterior. Should all match up at the bottom at the side seams. If it's easier for you to use Wonder Clips, go ahead and do that. I am just a pinner, so I actually never use Wonder Clips for anything. I pin everything, but I know when you're doing zippers, it is a lot easier to use a clip, so I did that to show you. But I usually pin my zippers too, but when you do that, you have to do a lot more moving of your pins and things than you do with the clips. So. And using clips with the Wonder, with the soft and stable, is much easier than using pins because you have a lot of thick layers to go through. But I'm just a mad pinner, so sorry about that. I always feel like things stay really nicely together. Okay, so here is the side seam that I was talking about in the pattern. You want to make sure that your side seam, see, those are the two bottom panels and the two side panels. You want to make sure that the seam is matching up, because if it comes out off like this, it's going to be off on the outside of your bag, and then it's not going to look as nice. So you want to get those two seams to match up right there. And the same thing on this side. Make sure that those two seams are matching up before you pin them together. I didn't need to mess with mine too much. They were pretty much right on, so that's good. There are a lot of instructions for this bag, but it doesn't take very long to make. It just seems like it does, but it really doesn't. Okay, so let me lay this down and show you what I've done. I've got it pinned on each side seam and the bottom seams, and I put 2 pins between the spots where I want to leave an opening. So I'm going to leave this open so that I can turn the whole bag out through that hole right there. And let me see if I can keep myself in frame this time. It's kind of hard to sew around my camera, so every once in a while I hit it and then you guys don't see me. And we're back stitching at the ends of each area. So I'm just working around in a circle. Isn't it amazing how thick Soft and Stable is, but how easy it is to sew through? Okay. So now the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and open up these side seams and I'm going to press them. And then we're going to come back to the sewing machine. So I just have my little iron over here. These side seams are a little bit hard to press because of where they're at. You kind of have to finesse it a little bit. So we're coming up on the part where this is actually finally to the point where I wanted to show you in video because I don't feel like the illustrations are very good. And I might just take a picture of it and put that in the pattern. But I'm doing this before I release the pattern. You guys might not know that. Okay, so I've just pressed those side seams open. Now, this is the part that I wanted to show you. So to close these openings where we've cut out the squares, what you're going to do is pull them out so that they're making a straight line. The side seams will line up over your zipper. You want to center those side seams right where the zipper is on both sides. You're going to flatten this out nice and flat so that the fabric edges all line up. And it's nice and straight. And then you can either clip or pin these. I will pin because that's what I do. But make sure when you look inside here that you've got, oh, and I almost forgot something, your twill tapes. So take your 2 pieces of twill, and you want, this is the right side of the zipper, you want to put the twill tapes right along where the raw edge of your fabric is. Make sure that that side seam is right straight over where the zipper is. Make sure that all of that fabric on the inside down here is nice and flat and straight. Let me take this pin out for now. And that all of those raw edges are meeting there at the top. Your raw edges for your inside lining are meeting, and then pin it or clip it, wonder clip it. This is kind of the most important part, and it's the part that's the hardest to show. Okay, I had to take a picture. You see my phone sitting there. I had to take a picture because I think I'm going to take the picture and use that in the pattern instead of the illustration. So, even though it took me about 6 hours to try to make the illustration, it's just not, it just doesn't look right. So, take some pictures instead. So again, I'm just straightening this out and making sure that all of the raw edges are together. I want the raw edge of the soft and stable and the raw edge of all of your fabrics matched up right there. So when I go to sew it, and as you can see, here's the twill tape. The loop is going toward the inside or the outside. It's the inside when you're looking at it this way. So what I'm going to do when I go to sew is I'm going to sew across here using the raw edge as my guide for the 1/4 inch seam. Okay. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm opening this up, making sure that the fabric is all along the raw edge of the soft and stable. And then I am straightening that out to make a straight seam. And I'm making sure that the side seams are centered perfectly over the zipper. And I'll put my twill tape in. And twill tape should be centered perfectly over where the zipper is as well. It's a little bit fiddly, but it's not too bad. Okay, so now everything is pinned together. The lining, the zipper, the outside, the twill tape, everything is all pinned down. And we are going to go sew. Now in this case, we are going to use a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And the reason that I'm doing that is to make sure that I get all of the edges sewn together. So as you can see, this is pulled away a little bit right here, but because I'm using a 3/8 inch seam allowance, we're going to be okay. So it's just there's so many layers, it's really hard to keep that all straight, especially that lining piece. Go really slow when you're going over the zipper part because there's a lot of layers of twill tape and zipper and fabric and soft and stable, so you want to be really careful there. And I got too narrow, so I'm going to go back and make sure that that's 3/8 all the way across. Just where it went off. I never said I was perfect. But it won't hurt anything. That'll never be seen. It's all on the inside, so it's all good. That's Kathy. I'm doing a video, dear. Okay, so those are all done. Now all we're going to do is do the same thing with the bottom corners of the lining and the bottom corners of the bag, which is much easier because you're not having to line anything up except for your seams. So we're going to line up the bottom seam and the side seam of the lining. And pin it, and the same thing with each of the corners. And as I said, these are so much easier because all you're doing is just that one layer of fabric. These ones, again, those are pretty easy, but we're going to go ahead and line up the side seams and the bottom seam for the outside of the bag. Make sure that your fabric is pulled all the way to the edge where the soft and stable is, otherwise you're not going to know where to sew. And I'm just making sure that it's super flat right there. It doesn't have any wrinkles in it, because if it has wrinkles, then you sew it, it will have wrinkles forever. Although I have been known to turn my bag back out and re-sew things before, but we don't want to have to do that, so let's try to get those nice and flat before we sew it. Okay. Okay, again, we're going to use a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Stuck myself with a pin, but I'm not bleeding, so I'm good. Only a little bit of blood. It's not going to get on my fabric. It's fine. Have you guys ever seen that video on Facebook of the lady that's supposedly sewing and like bleeding and doing all kinds of crazy things? It's the funniest video. That's what it always reminds me of when I do something like that on camera. Should have cut that piece of thread off, huh? This is the part where I always get excited because it's almost time to turn the bag out and see what it looks like. Okay. Okay, so here we are. Our bag's all sewn. Now we're just going to turn this out through the hole in the lining and through the zipper, because you're going to have to pull that both parts of the bag out. I usually try to pull from the bottom part, makes it easier. Go all the way through. I'm just pushing all the corners out. This is the moment of truth to see if you've made any mistakes. All my seams look good. They all match up nicely. So at this point, I would take a towel and stuff it inside and press to make all of the edges nice and crisp. But I am going to skip that part for now, and I'm just going to show you how to put the grommets in. So this is the front of the bag. Actually, this is, well, I like these birds better, so we'll make this the front. And all you're going to do is, so your grommets will have two pieces. You know what? I'm going to put this on hold for just a second, and I'm going to go get all of the parts. Okay, so I went and found grommet setter and grommets. And there's two parts to each of the grommets. There is a washer, and there is the outside part. There we go. Okay. I decided to use brass because there's gold metallic on this. See the gold metallic? It's so cute. Okay. So what we're going to do is measure down 1.5 inches from the top from the zipper. So that's 1.5 inches, and 3 inches from the side seam. So that's right here. And I'm just going to make a little X right there. Be careful, very, very careful when you do this. Not only of your bag, but of your fingers, because let me tell you what happened to me. I needed stitches from doing the first bag. Because it's hard to get through all of those layers. So you can do it. And I've made a little hole there. Now I'm going to put the outside part of the grommet through first. Needs to be a little bit bigger. So these were brand new scissors, and you probably can't see this on the tape, but there is a cut on my finger. It still hurts even though it's closed up, but all the way to my fingernail, all the way through my finger. Yeah, it wasn't nice. So just be really careful when you do this. Don't want you to get hurt. Just keep making that hole just a little bit bigger each time until you can finally get through all the way, because you don't want it to be too big for the grommet, but you don't want it to be too small either. It needs to be a little bit bigger. And I try to cut a little X, but it doesn't always work out. I'm just pulling the fabric over the edges of the grommet until it gets all the way through. And then you put the washer on the backing. This is the setting tool, and you want the divot on the top, the concave part. I lied. You do want that concave part up, but you want to go this direction so that the tool is on the side where the washer is. So your outside of your grommet is in the base part of your tool. This is hard to see in the picture, sorry about that. And then I'm just using a hammer. I'm on my cutting mat. It won't hurt the cutting mat because the back side of the setting tool is flat, so it's not going to make a hole in your mat or anything. I'm going to have to hit it pretty hard because you're trying to curl that lip of that grommet over the edge of the washer so that it doesn't come off. Yeah, it's good and tight. And the outside doesn't get messed up from this either, so it's good. Okay, so we need to do the same thing on the other side. Down 1.5 inches. Best to do it this way. Over 3 inches. It's right there next to that flower. And then once you can get a little bit of a hole there, then you can get the scissors through. But be really, really careful. Please be careful. I would feel so terrible if you got hurt from this. And I was so excited because I had been working on this pattern for so long, and I was so excited to finally do the very last thing, which was getting those grommets in, and then I hurt myself. Almost there. There we go. Trying to make it so you can see it better. And I kind of turn my get it to curl around that. You want it to be nice and smooth because you don't want it to catch on your yarn. And there it is. And once this is all pressed, which I didn't take the time to do with you on watching, but it's all nice and pretty. And I will put in so the only thing you have left to do then is just sew this opening closed that's in your lining. So what I would do then is just press that. And if you want to hand sew it, I will hand sew it because that's what I like to do. But if you want to machine sew it, nobody's ever going to know the difference. They're never going to open up your bag and look in there to see that you have a little tiny seam holding your lining together. So go ahead and sew it by machine if that's what you like to do. And then to put in your divider, you just attach it to the Velcro on each side, and it's ready to go. So that's your cute little bag. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that having the video helped with putting it all together. And yeah, all finished.